To the Batmobile. Let's go.
Come on, bub, for old time's sake, huh?
Harley Quinn, nice to meet ya.
Pardon my French. Fuck those fuckers.
Favorite Marvel character ever, but you should never meet your heroes because honestly, he's a bit of a dick.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat.
I am inevitable. Smash!
Right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Comics in Motion podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi there, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion TV and movie reviews for shows that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also love to do is we also love to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. And remember, with an average podcast comes no responsibility. Now, Chris, we've been a bit up and down, haven't we? So in our various podcasts. Actually saw a bit of feedback. So Mike and Scott were saying, they absolutely loved Doctor Strange and, what the hell are we talking about? Because it just didn't quite hit it for us. But I think we did say at the time, didn't we? I think other people quite like it, and put it up there with some of the best origin movies, certainly for the MCU. But yeah, it just didn't quite hit the mark for us. Now, Chris, tackling something a little bit different this week. What are we going to do?
So we're going with the brand new TV show just released on Hulu, Dave, and we're only reviewing the first two episodes as they come out. Helstrom, which I don't know anything about. I know it's a comic book property, Dave, so over to you.
Well, this one's it's a funny one, isn't it? So it doesn't actually have a release date in the UK yet, and it's a bit of an anomaly because you remember when we reviewed like Cloak and Dagger, other series that we've not covered, things like Runaways. You've had other networks basically producing TV shows, Netflix probably being another example, producing TV shows for Marvel properties. But now everything's kind of consolidated under Kevin Feige. And so we're not going to get any of these other TV shows being produced now by other networks. Everything's going to be done under that Marvel banner. So basically, they've released this series. I think it debuted in October, actually. So it has been out in the US for a little while. But it's pretty much one of those, bit like Swamp Thing. It's pretty much cancelled before it's even started. So it's going to be a one-off season, and we're not going to see a follow-up to this one. Now, Chris, this is based on... It's Daniel Helstrom, otherwise known as Hellstorm, or just simply the son of Satan.
Nice.
Now, I'm sure in previous episodes we've talked about the Comics Code and how basically they were looking at it. Comics were being blamed for basically corrupting the youth of America, and so you ended up having this Comics Code authority, and everything had to be rubber stamped by them. So you ended up with, that's why you ended up with the kind of campy Batman and silly Joker, and it took out all the darkness from all the comics and really sanitized them for a number of years. Whereas in the early 70s, it started to relax a little bit, and old Stan Lee's like, right, let's create a comic on Satan. In that kind of Bolton way,
Yeah.
Let's create a comic on Satan.
Hey, Max, I'll have you, Dave.
You fucking will, worry. I was listening to an interview with Paddy McGuinness, actually. It was Jamie Carragher, and he introduced him as what's his fucking Phoenix Knights? Peter Kay. He said, it's Peter Kay's sidekick. And he was like, aye, I'm talking to Steven Gerrard's sidekick, am I? But it's a really good interview if you go and listen to that one. But anyway, so Stan Lee wasn't from Bolton, obviously, but I can't really do a Stan Lee accent. So, I think the feedback was generally, okay, let's not run before we can walk. Let's maybe not create... I know the Comics Code Authority are relaxing things, but maybe releasing a comic called Satan isn't probably the best thing.
Yeah.
So they ended up going with the Son of Satan. So you ended up with these kind of horror comics, coming back to the fore with Marvel. So they did stuff like this, Son of Satan. They did Ghost Rider. That's where that kind of originated from. You ended up with the Tomb of Dracula. So, these kind of occult type characters all sprung up around that early 70s time. Blade, of course, Chris, talked about Blade before, obviously. So yeah, now I've not read these original comics. I first came across the character. I think he was in one of the iterations of Marvel Zombies, and that team came together, and he was part of one of those teams, and that was my first exposure to the character. Never honestly thought I'd see him on the screen, to be honest. He really is one of those kind of peripheral characters when it comes to like Marvel Universe crossover events and things. But I was genuinely quite interested in seeing, well, what's this one all about? I know there's not going to be a follow up, but let's see what they make of it.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dave, because I know we'll get into that in the review. For me, there was similarities of TV show I loved as a teenager. So I want to talk about that after we've done the trailer, Dave. But just before we get into it, Dave, I will say, and I know we don't talk a lot of gaming on here, and it's comic related. I've just finished, Dave, Miles Morales, as you know. I've been cooing over it on the PlayStation 5. It is available on the PS4 because I know getting a PS5 is like rocking horse shit at the moment. You absolutely got to pull one out the bag. And, I've been lucky enough to, I always go, first thing I'd warned everyone from day dot, get in the day that first pre-orders going because you're not going to get them. And I was lucky to get one, so I'm loving it. And I've just done my 24-hour game streaming, which I want to thank you, Dave, and all the guys on our feed and some of our listeners and that who've sponsored me. I really appreciate it. We've raised about £400 so far, so that was a massive
Tony
thingy
as well.
for me. Tony, John, Hammond, Shalesy as well. I think it's Gareth Shalesy. I always call him Shalesy, so sorry, mate. He sponsored me. You had Dave, everyone. I want to thank everybody who sponsored me and come in and watched me, even when you did see me getting absolutely beat 5-1 by Liverpool, Dave. But anyway, that was
brilliant.
my
I
brother's.
loved it. It was great. It was the best bit of
my
the
brother's
day.
fault. It's my brother's fault, honestly. It was. He was playing as one and I was playing as the other, and we got dicks. But anyway, and the comic related thing, Miles Morales, which you know me, I'm so naive to think that there was only Peter Parker. I always know Spider-Man as Peter Parker. I only know Robin as Dick Grayson. I've completely, even Batman, Dave, there's been a few iterations. Even Alfred's got in on the act, hasn't he? I'm so down the middle as a movie fan that it's got to be Bruce Wayne and all this. So when I watched Into the Spider-Verse, I was blown away. I've watched it again recently this week. Sam watched it for the first time. I said, loved it, and it's such a good movie. It's on Netflix now. And I got this thinking, I'm not even going to play it. I don't really play a lot of story-driven stuff now. I'm an online gamer, really, and it's very difficult to get me engrossed in a campaign and a story mode. But it was absolutely sensational, Dave. And I'll be honest with you, because of the graphics are like real on that at the end, we have a lump in the throat there, Dave. I was a little bit teary-eyed. I won't spoil anything, but absolutely amazing. And I've gone back on the 2018 Spider-Man, which I think you'd seen on the stream and some of the other guys, and that's been remastered for the PS5, and I'm absolutely loving it. I can't get off it. So they are my recommendations for gaming, Dave. We don't mention it very often, but yeah, absolutely love both of them games.
That was the original intent when we started the podcast, wasn't it? If you go back and listen to those early episodes, we say we're going to cover games, and it was for things like this as well. But there's so many people covering the games, and you have to invest a lot more time in it. I have to say, rather embarrassingly, I've got that Spider-Man. I bought the 2018, was it? I bought it.
2018.
Yeah, I bought it not long after it had come out, and so I paid full price for it and everything. And my son, he's played it loads. I just haven't had fucking time. Well, actually, that's not strictly true. If I have a bit of time, I'll default to FIFA because I know I can get a game out of the way in 20 minutes. Whereas I feel like if I play these other kind of open world type games, I feel like I need a good 3 hours.
Yeah.
Now, the irony is, I'll usually end up playing FIFA for about 3 hours, but, I'll always think, well, just one more game. And I bought the Avengers one as well fairly recently, and that's, again, looks awesome. When I see Max playing it, looks great. I need to buckle down and actually get some proper gaming in, because it does look pretty awesome. The 2018 one and the new Miles Morales one as well.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, Dave, it's brilliant. I mean, I was lucky enough to buy the limited edition one because I got a good trading money back and all that. So it works out. It cost about 28 quid. So honestly, I'll never buy a game unless I'm going to play the multiplayer side of it. It's honestly very, very rare. Other than Gears of War, which I love, and then sometimes the Uncharted series on the PlayStation, which I do love as well. You won't see me. Even the Batman games, which are amazing, all the Arkham ones, I've never really touched them. The first one I did, and they're brilliant, Dave. So, yeah, that's one of my recommendations. And my next one, it's very similar vein, is Jedi Fallen Order, which come out last year. And that was everyone's game of the year. So that's on Xbox Game Pass. I'm playing that. I'm not just being a console warrior, Dave, on the PlayStation. I'm going on the Xbox to play that next week, I think. But a brilliant, brilliant game, and highly recommend it.
No, that's cool. And I've heard Mike sort of reference Fallen Order as well, and I'm sure you see, because it's not really in canon as such, but I think there are nods. So when it's in Legends, so stories that are told not necessarily in continuity, they can sometimes bring that into canon as well. So yeah, it'd be that's another one. But again, Chris, I've got fucking Star Wars Battlefront, the first one. I played it, fucking loved it, but then just haven't gone back to it again. So I haven't got my money's worth out of that one either yet.
Well, you know what, Dave? There's still an active community on the Battlefront games, and I must admit, it's about a $5, and they always have sales on the PlayStation Store if you get the physical disc. If you go online, Battlefront 2, Dave. When it first come out, it was a shit show of a game, because you know how much I game. I game every single day. I'm gaming for at least between an hour to 3 hours a day, through the day or evening, whatever, around work and all that. But genuinely, Battlefront 2 is absolutely amazing, and you'll pick up all the DLC, all the extra maps, everything. That is a game that's still heavily populated, and it's absolutely perfect Star Wars game.
Nice. You know what? I'm going to do it. That's going to be my New Year's resolution. So I'm going to give up the gym, and I'm going to...
No, don't.
I'm going to start drinking more. I'm going to start eating more junk food and gaming more.
Yeah. I'm lucky, I do all that, Dave. So I do my gym stuff. But yeah, I must admit that the gaming never goes away. No matter how fit I get or unfit I get, the gaming's always there in the background. So it's just my thing. That I love it.
I think it's, and to be honest, my problem is, Chris, I always love playing in the career mode in FIFA. So, like I say, the amount of hours it takes, you got to train up, you got to scout these youngsters, you got to train them up. I want to train them up so they're 90 plus. It takes fucking ages. So my whining about the lack of time is really the gaming time that I do spend is fucking training up these made-up characters to try and get them to punch above their weight and win the Champions League. I'm actually playing as Tranmere Rovers at the minute.
Nice.
I've got them up to the Championship, and that's after I'd completed it with, I think it was MK Dons for a bit. Anyway, Chris.
Marvelous. Yeah, because talk about gaming all day, Dave. Sorry about the tangent. I just thought I'd have to mention it to everyone.
No, that's all right. Well, should we get into our trailer?
Let's go.
For centuries, we've been fighting and keeping track of different things that move in and out of this world. The most dangerous ones, we find a way to contain. This is one of the worst ever.
Mom, can you hear me? I demand to speak with my mother.
I am mother.
My body is a cage.
It's Mom. The thing that's got a hold of her, it's gotten stronger.
This family's unnatural behavior. I've never experienced anything like it.
What happened to them? It wasn't some random family tragedy. Their father was evil, and mother cursed him for discovering the truth.
There are other forces at play here. A demon so powerful, it could wipe out all of mankind. We can't do this alone.
If we put them together now,
There will be blowback.
Please tell me the is dead.
My body is a
You come crawling back, looking for mommy's love.
The last thing the world needs is a Helstrom family reunion.
Now we start off and we meet Damon and Anna Helstrom, and they're siblings and they live in Portland and San Francisco respectively. Damon is a college professor who aids the St. Teresa Center for Mental Health with cases using his demonic-based abilities. At the same time, Anna works as an antique dealer who scours and kills criminals with her psychic powers. Now, Chris, what do you make to the opening in this first episode?
You know what, Dave? I didn't mean to, but you know, like when you search for stuff regarding this, what we were going to get into Helstrom and that, and I'm thinking, right, it's been absolutely slated online, right? I mean, I know the famous Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 27%. However, watching the opening one of this, Dave, the production on it's pretty good. It's very much in the vein of, say, a Smallville type. I know that's a few years old now, but you've got that calm before the storm and then it kicks off a little bit. But what I was saying before we did the trailer, Dave, for me, these first two episodes are so reminiscent of the X-Files, the way they're investigating Damon and they're investigating. I know like his sister Anna, she's a proper live wire and we're getting this little bit of a backstory, but I didn't mind it at all. Now, whether after the first two episodes it falls off a cliff, I don't know, but genuinely, it was pretty. What even better for the X-Files reference, Dave, and I said it to you, was at the end, this big bad guy comes in with the bald head, and he was actually Mulder and Scully's boss at the head of the FBI, or whether they were in, who used to follow him around with the bald head and the glasses. Looks a bit like Grant Mitchell. So, yeah, he comes in at the end of it. So yeah.
He looks... was it... What was his name? Was it Skinner or something?
Skinner. Yeah, good one, Dave. Skinner, that's him, yeah. That is him.
Yeah, because he looks like Neil's dad out the In-Betweeners.
Yeah, it's a Grant Mitchell, but yeah, I'll go with that, Dave. But yeah, that's him. That is him. And I didn't think it was bad. I mean, we get like the demon side. I thought you'd stitch me up with an absolute horror movie, a TV show. I'm thinking, we're fucking holding my pillar up to my head here. But it wasn't. It was quite good. Honestly, I'm going to watch the rest of this series, and I don't say that a lot with the stuff. If we do a couple of episodes, something's terrible, I'll be like, I'm not fucking doing this. But I genuinely quite enjoyed it, to be honest. It was a little bit slow in parts in the first episode, but by the second one, I was right into the characters. And I think Damon's quite an interesting character. And he's a bit like, I'd say he's a bit like as well, Dave, Blade. So he gets called basically like what you call it, a scab in the UK, don't you? Where they go across the picket line, but basically a turncoat, one and stuff, a grass, because he's switches from the bad to the good sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I think the X-Files comparison is a good one, actually, because I was struggling to think, what is this really like? I think straight off the bat, you'd say it's definitely a TV series, isn't it? Like an old school TV series. So, when Netflix did like the Daredevil series and whatever, the production on that looked amazing, didn't it? It basically, it just looked like a movie, only they were showing it in an episode format. Whereas this one looks more like your classic kind of TV kind of budget, TV production. But I do like it. And yeah, I think I can go with the X-Files comparison as well, because the special effects are kind of used sparingly, aren't they? And it's more about just the interplay between the different characters. And you're trying to, I mean, we've only watched a couple of episodes, so you're trying to piece together, okay, what's actually going on here? Because you've got that classic TV episodic approach where each episode tells its own story, but you're getting little pieces that help you understand where kind of Damon and Anna have come from, and what's going on with the mother, what's going on with the father and stuff. And I quite enjoyed it as well. And I don't quite get what the Slayton is for. Again, like I say, I haven't read the original Son of Satan run. I don't really have any emotional attachment to this character. So basically, I think what it could be is a bit like Constantine, Chris, where you've basically got Keanu Reeves playing a character called Constantine. Now, he's nothing like the Constantine in the comics, nothing at all. But as a standalone movie, it was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And Dave, look, nothing's worse TV shows I've watched recently than that Crisis on Infinite Earth. That was fucking rubbish. Fucking Superman and everyone stood around fluffing each other off while they're going, "Oh my God, don't do that. Oh my God, no, he's going to do this." And everyone's just stood around. Superman would be straight in there kicking the shit out of everyone. So it was a terrible fucking collaboration. I mean,
Oh, come on. You did get Brandon Roth as...
Brandon Roth. I was about to say Brandon Roth was great, Dave, and his Superman was brilliant. But that fucking midget guy who was Superman was terrible. The fucking guy with the black hair. He's in Lois and Clark, which I'm probably going to watch because I loved the original Lois and Clark with Dean Cain, and obviously Terry Hatcher I absolutely had a crush on. So she was up there with Jet from Gladiators and Pamela Anderson, Dave, mid-90s. She definitely seen a lot of
Terry Hatcher.
Dave, a lot of shoulder work from me anyway, I'll be honest with you. But genuinely...
he was the guy. So Midget Superman was the guy... I don't know if you've ever watched a movie called Hall Pass.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy who went with... what's her name? Isn't it something Christina Applegate? Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Married with children. So he was the young college lad who ended up going with her, and that's where I recognised him from. But absolutely, for me, not a Superman type character. But we digress.
Exactly.
Now, Chris, what do you reckon to Damon when we first meet him? He goes in, there's this apparent exorcist situation with this little kid. He's smeared shit all over the place. He's speaking Latin, but Damon's not having any of it. What do you reckon to that whole introduction to the character?
Yeah, you know what, Dave? Like I say, Damon's quite good, and you're right. It is just an X-Files type, and like I say, it's like an X-Files type situation where they're going to be investigating stuff each episode, but there's a backdrop of this situation with his sister, and all these other things are going to come into play. Honestly, I think it's a good concept. It's watchable, and I think what you said earlier about it's definitely a TV show for special effects and that they are used sparingly, but when they're used, they're not bad. So. Genuinely, Dave, for me, I don't see what the issue is with this. I think Damon's convincing. You've got obviously Anna, his sister. She's got the black bob, hasn't she? And you've got Scully, in effect. You've got his sidekick on, who obviously she's going to be quite prominent. So really, it's about the three of them through this whole start of the show. So honestly, it's a good show, Dave. I don't get the hate at the moment. I really don't.
No, and one of the series we never really picked up on was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which basically followed Agent Coulson after his kind of resurrection after getting killed off in Avengers Assemble. For me, this is as good as that. Now, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did get better as well as the seasons went on. You had a bit of Ghost Rider in there, which wasn't the Nick Cage one, but a different Ghost Rider. Missed opportunity there. But yeah, no, I think it's good, and I'm genuinely interested, Chris, in the dynamics, because you've obviously got a lot of history. It kind of drops us in the middle of this story, doesn't it? He obviously knows. There's obviously a needle between him and his sister. You're getting these flashbacks to what happened when they were younger. Obviously, it looks like the father was obviously some kind of serial killer or something, and seemed to run off with Anna. And Anna seems to think quite poorly of Damon over that. You've got the mother who's fucking possessed, and that was creepy as fuck, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think as well, Dave, you've got obviously his sidekick who, She's sent from the Vatican, Dave. If there's ever a place that's more bent than anybody, fucking hell. You know what I mean? And I'm a Catholic, Dave. Jesus Christ. So yeah, Gabriella, she, like I say, she's the Scully of this Mulder. Yeah, the dynamic of it's good. It's a good TV show. It's about an hour long, isn't it, give or take. Adverts, depending where you're watching it. Yeah, I'm not just saying I've got nothing to say about it, but the first episode starts quite interesting. These are, like I say, a bit slow, but they've got to tell the story. They've got, as you always say, they've got to lay the jigsaw and the pieces down, haven't they? So you put it all together. And by the second episode, I was quite invested in it. I watched them back to back. I was like, you know what? This isn't actually that bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's 10 episodes, isn't there? I'll definitely watch this after as well. And I think I hadn't really made the connection with the X-Files, but I think that is it. I think it just has that familiar feeling, and so I'm bought in quite early on. And I think as well, the guy playing Damon, what's his name? I had it up a minute ago. So Tom Austin, he does have that kind of Fox Mulder arrogance, that David Duchovny. Where, especially when the little kid is speaking Latin, it's like, oh, right, Latin, that's original, isn't it? What you're going to do is you're going to clean all of this with bleach and, you're going to apologize to your mum and dad. And he's a bit pissed off, isn't he, with Gabriella, because he reckons she should have seen this. She's just wasted his time. This was something that's not really in his... it didn't need him to come out. But I think that just, like I say, it told you quite a lot about Damon, that, you can't kid a kidder. And so, like I say, in that Fox Mulder way, you've got him, you can't pull a fast one with him, and he's just got it all under control, and he's just, to a bit of a cocky level. So yeah, I was quite enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I think with the second one, we get a bit more flesh on the bones, don't we? So we get this whole dynamic, like you say, about the mum. Anna goes to see the mum. The mum's possessed, very much Linda Hamilton, Terminator 2 job, but she just doesn't speak. And she's there, and the woman who runs the whole sort of sanctuary, this asylum or wherever she is, she's like, it's not a good idea, it's not a good idea. But Anna gets the reaction out of her mum, doesn't she? Which is the demon inside her mum, who then attacks Anna and sort of knocks her unconscious. And Damon, in the meantime, is involved with a guy who has got picked up by a hitchhiker, says he's injured, and he's a demon, isn't he? And he attacks the young lad who saved him, sort of thing, in the car, and he gets called to that. And then the demon ends up underneath a vehicle, and this is where you see Damon again doing like a possession, doesn't he? Like a whole, sort of like the Catholic side of things or whatever, and taking his soul into his family. And that's when we get the full thing about him calling him a turncoat and a grass sort of thing, because he's turned on his people, because Damon's one of them, but he's a good guy. So I honestly, Dave, I was totally intrigued. And by the end of this, I know I said at the start, the end of it, we do get Skinner out of X-Files coming in, who looks like he's Satan, doesn't it? No spoilers, but it does look like he's going to be the big bad in this series, because he just looks proper psycho.
Yeah. No, I quite like that. And it's almost, I mean, I mentioned Constantine before, so it's got a little bit of a feel of that, and, tapping into the occult and not being phased when someone starts giving the old demon voice. He's not asked by it. He's not phased by it at all, is he? No. And a bit of X-Files thrown in there as well. So yeah, I don't get what the hate is at all. I don't know if people were watching this expecting something different. I don't know if my own perception of it was, I had fairly low expectations going into this, and so I don't know whether I was just like, this is going to be fucking terrible. And then you watch it and it's like, yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's not... We're watching, we're doing on the Comics in Motion, we're doing a weekly Mandalorian wrap-up, aren't we? Or recap, rather. Now, for me, The Mandalorian is the best weekly show on TV at the moment. I mean, you weren't quite into Game of Thrones as much as I was, were you? No. But, I mean, for me, it's not since Game of Thrones when I've been literally wanting for that next day, next week to come around as soon as possible. Because it's like, oh, I need to know what happens. And, no spoilers for Mandalorian. But fucking hell, the way it ended this week, I'm like, oh, shit, I need to know what happens now. Roll on next Friday. So this isn't that, right? This isn't in the same ballpark. It's not anywhere near as good as that. But it's just, just a solid TV show. You've got the intrigue, like I say, you've got interesting things going on. It's building on top of the story, So I mean, in the second episode, you get Damon and Anna coming together, and that's obviously, this bittersweet reunion. They're sort of not happy with each other, even though it's the dad who's a bit of a douchebag by the sounds of it, old Satan there. So yeah, and I'm intrigued to go and watch the third episode now.
You know what, Dave? I'm with you on that, but I just want to say one thing. You actually stole my thunder because I was going to mention The Mandalorian, and in comparison to this, no, honestly, I genuinely was, because I mentioned when I think I did episode 4. I've done like 1 and 2, and I think I did 4 dinners so far of the whole shows that we're doing. I'm with Scott again this week, and what I found with The Mandalorian is it's very samey. Now, this week's episode was fantastic. It's episode 6 of the season 2, chapter 14, in chronological order, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I genuinely, no spoilers, I was proper fanboying out, Dave. And you know which bit I mean, because it's absolutely class.
Yeah.
But it's still the same formula, but because of the cinematography, obviously the budget that Disney have thrown at it, that the whole Star Wars universe that you're going into, and the little Easter eggs. Because more than anything, I'm looking out for the Easter eggs, and boy, was there a proper fanboy Easter egg this week. So I loved it, but I did question it because it is very samey. Now, the only thing I'd say about this in comparison is this very samey without not a lot happening. Is it by episode 10? You're like, it's the same fucking thing. They go and investigate something. This happens. This happens. We don't know because we've not seen it. But that's where I'm wondering, is that why the review scores are poorly? Because there isn't really an end point to it, and there's no real diverse in each episode. It's just the same, right, in the same things. Because The Mandalorian, strip it all away, it's almost, Dave, I'm going to say something controversial now. Mike will have me for this, but it's almost at Walking Dead levels of transparency. No, Walking Dead levels of being obvious. Now, Walking Dead, first 2 series, I loved it. Didn't know what to think of it. Didn't know not into that sort of stuff at all. And it was an absolute global phenomenon, wasn't it? It was absolutely amazing show. First season was brilliant. We had John Bernthal there as like the sort of the goody stroke baddie, his partner, Rick's partner, and that. And it was really good. But then it just became the same things. They were cooped up somewhere, and when they were in that, might have been in season 3 when I fell off, when they cooped up in that prison or that high school, and it's like, oh no, we need to go and get some supplies. Let's go and get some supplies from this building that's full of food. There's not one bit of sound. I've said this before, I know, Dave. And as soon as we open the cellar, there's 500 walkers in there that we didn't hear one bit, and they're going to attack you. And let's rinse and repeat that every episode. And then we'll bump into some humans who we've not seen, who are really bastards, and we're going to kill them as well. And it was the same. And I remember saying to Sam, I'm not watching this anymore. And I picked it up when Negan come in, about 6 seasons later or whatever it was. And I watched some of that because they did want him to get his comeuppance, but more just the odd scenes with Jeffrey Thingy. He was brilliant in it. He was absolutely topping it against Rick. He was a really good baddie. And that was it. I didn't watch full episodes. I just wanted to see Rick give him a good kicking, and which I did. But I didn't watch it. And I'm wondering whether, and this is a complete thing, I've not read anything, but I'm wondering whether that's what the problem is with this series, that it's the same stuff. They go and investigate something, a bit like Smallville. You go and investigate something happens, Clark had to use his powers, the end. And I don't know, Dave, but that's the only logical thing, because at the moment, it's a pretty solid series from the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, we're proper tangenting today, aren't we?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, yeah.
But just for the record, I thought Walking Dead was brilliant. When people were dropping off because it was all a bit samey, I was still sticking around because you were getting different characters, different character development. I still think, in the similar way that, the original comics did it, it completely gave a fresh at the time take of zombie stories. It was less about the threat coming from the zombies. It was more the threat coming from other humans, and that kind of post-apocalyptic kind of mentality, and how when you've got that thin veneer of society removed, how do actual people behave? And quite often it's in kind of a brutal way. So there's loads of novels and stuff. I love this really old one from the 50s, Day of the Triffids, which I think is basically Walking Dead but with plants. Which sounds awful, doesn't it? But it was really good at the way they tried to rebuild society. But I must admit, even I dropped off when Andrew Lincoln dropped out. I was done. At some point, because I'm a completionist, I'll go back and I'll finish it. But even I was done, and I fucking loved that season, that series. So I'm quite surprised it's still going now. But anyway, getting back to this, Chris, there were 11 seasons of the X-Files, and I know it was a bit of a. It wasn't like it didn't come with the anticipation, did it? We weren't all watching episode 1 of the X-Files and then, that's it. We were all hooked from episode 1, season 1. It was more a word of mouth thing, wasn't it? And again, it was a weekly show, and then you'd kind of watch some and then you'd discuss it. For me, it was, when was it? It was probably school and then college. And then, it comes on and then the music comes on and you're like, oh, yes, X-Files time. And, sometimes it'd be about occult type things, satanic type things like this. Other weeks it'd be about more alien, and then other weeks it'd be more of a conspiracy thing, so what the government knows something, but what is this all about? And then you got some chain smoker called Deep Throat.
Yeah,
He's an unusual fella.
I remember him, the old guy.
Yeah.
He's called Cancer Man. Deep Throat. Yeah, I had it on.
That's what Mulder called him, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah. I had it on a video day. That's how long ago it was. It was like the late 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and I don't think I ever saw the ending. I think it was one of those where I didn't need to watch every single week, so I could go a few weeks, and then come and pick it up. And then because it's in that episode format, even though you might not know some of the overarching things that are going on, you can still watch that episode and enjoy it. And, some of them were creepy as fuck, weren't they?
They were.
A lot more than others. So I guess what I'm saying is, with those 11 seasons, and they had a movie as well, didn't they? I think a format like this has got some longevity in it. I think way more than just one season. So I guess we're speaking slightly in the dark, aren't we? We normally say we spoil everything, but with this one, we can't actually spoil it because we haven't watched it yet. So there must be a reason. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, what did you say it was? 27%?
27, yeah.
I mean, IMDb, which I quite like IMDb. I think it gives it, I think it groups everything in and around 5, to be honest. You don't get too many things that are really, down past 4, and not too many things past 8. It has to be really exceptional if it's a 9 or something. It has to be an absolute car crash if it's a 3 or a 4. So this gives it as a 6.8 on IMDb. So for me, it's not great, but it's not a car crash either.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think what we should do, and not necessarily, we'll just talk about it when we do one of our reviews, but we should just do a catch up when we've both watched it. Just a quick 5 minutes. What do you think? And for anyone listening as well, if you've watched it, what do you think of it as well? Because it's really polarizing. Really, but like you say, IMDb is pretty favourable. Everywhere else is pretty slating of it. And I want to read some reviews and some proper write-ups about it, whether they do compare it to the X-Files, Dave. Because I think you're right. I think the format's there, but it might not be grabbing people. And if it's the same stuff over and over, then fair enough. I get that. But like hit the nail on the head. The X-Files each week, you didn't have a clue. One week it might be some kid is possessed and he's got, the Jesus in him or an alien in him or whatever. And like you say, the next week they'll be looking at fucking the crop circles in some farmer's land, wouldn't they? Or Mulder always had this thing going in the background with his dad and all that. So there was always enough variety each episode to keep a story going for their personal journeys, but also the investigation stuff as well. And this might be where this falls down. So we'll have to see how this one plays out.
Yeah. And again, because we haven't watched the rest of the series, I just brought up the IMDb user reviews. They're always good for a little bit of a giggle. We don't always read them out, but sometimes it's good for a laugh. I'm just pulling up this one here, which is a 2 out of 10 review. Subject: well, that was interesting, by Dangerous Dag, and it says, actually, no, it wasn't. Let's all fight evil by talking about our feelings. Let's eat hipster food and talk about our feelings, and the demons will be vanquished. Let's sit on a confessional and talk about our feelings, and evil will be conquered. Let's be terrible at acting while talking about our feelings, and good will triumph over evil. Let's be unable to write a single line of original dialogue while we fight evil and bore the demons to death. An unfortunate side effect of this strategy is that the audience is also bored. And like I say, that's from Dangerous Dag, age 12, from Texas. I made up that last bit. So that is, just scrolling down, that is the worst kind of review that I could see. Another one's got 4 out of 10. I stopped caring. Now, this is interesting. This catches my eye here. It says, up to episode 5, a decent show if you're a fan of supernatural in nature shows, such as Supernatural, Evil, Constantine. Now, I mentioned Constantine, didn't I?
Yep.
It's a little slow-paced and drip-feeds character development, which is not necessarily the best way to do it, as it feels the writers are using a lot of filler. It seems to take itself far too seriously, which is fine if you're going for horror, but it's lacking in some need lore exposition in a few areas for those of us who do not read comics. You know what I think this might be, Chris? This might be a generational thing.
Yeah.
Because here we are saying, it just reminds me of X-Files, this. It's pretty good. It's like a modern-day X-Files with a satanic twist, and so we're getting quite into it. These fucking millennials, right, who just want instant gratification, want instant, exposition about what is Damon, what are all his powers, what's his relationship with Anna, what's gone off there. Give me the answers now because I need them. I'm being a bit harsh there, maybe, but I think that might be the thing. I think if maybe you haven't grown up with a love for something like X-Files, maybe this sort of TV show just doesn't grab you at all.
Yeah. It might just be, like you said, the familiarity for us. We've got that baggage, and it may be a concept that just isn't at work anymore, Dave. The audiences are just like, nah, I've seen this, been there, done that. Maybe that's what it is.
It could be, but as I scroll down these reviews, most of them are favourable. Got one here, 10 out of 10, deserves a second season. Well, unfortunately, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I say, I mentioned it before, didn't I? The fact that, this was produced for Hulu, I guess part owned by Disney, but, this is kind of one of those outliers. So this unfortunately was terminally ill before it was even released. If anything, Disney would bring in the Netflix characters way before something like this, wouldn't they? But mind you, I'm going to contradict. You know what, Chris? I'm going to do a Phelps 180 here. Because actually, as I was just talking then, I was thinking, well, the New Mutants movie, which actually we didn't really like, that's got a bit of a horror element to it, hasn't it? And one of the biggest problems with that is they didn't really know what they were doing. They kind of were half-arsed making a bit of a horror movie, but it was always going to be a PG-13, and then they they released a trailer and then they thought, oh, let's ramp up the horror, but then the reshoots never happened, and so it just ended up, oh, let's fucking get it out there and be done with it. So you've got that. You've got Doctor Strange 2 coming out, so you've got the whole occult kind of thing there, bit of magic, bit of sorcery. So you could see a character like Helstrom possibly popping up, but I think the focus will be on other properties before this one.
Yeah. I agree, Dave. I agree. And like you said, you watched Swamp Thing. I never watched it. That got rave reviews, didn't it? It was really good and creepy and everything. So if this is, by the looks of it, Dave, I don't think we're far off what we're saying. And if people are saying it falls off, whatever, great. But what I struggle with a lot of these American series, as much as it's a property that we're into on the comics podcast, is I don't like getting invested in them because those fuckers in America just cut a season after one season or the second season. They'll leave it on a fucking cliffhanger. And you're like, what is the point of me? So my Sam goes mad at me because she'll go, you're not going to watch this? I go, no. I said, because I know in 1 or 2 seasons they're going to get rid of it. The only shows that I know of in America that Sam watches that have kept going, Dave, is Grey's Anatomy. Because you're at like the 15th series, and she loves stuff like that. Like I think it's still going. Chicago Fire's on about his 6th or 7th series, which, obviously you can tell Fire Engine, like London's Burning type show. They're the type of shows that will be sustainable. But when they have stuff like this, you don't see them again. Do you remember that one? Was it Josie Fiennes, which replaced Lost? And it was about, it was pretty good actually, where they lost all the electricity in the world. And it was him who was out of in the Mandalorian. Now he was in the Mandalorian, didn't he?
Was it Flash Forward?
Is that it? Flash Forward. He went like 5 years in front, didn't he? And there was planes falling out the skies and everything, didn't he? It's like the whole world just stopped all of a sudden. Electricity stopped.
Yeah, I think it was Flash Forward. I never actually saw that to the end, and I think I just missed it on TV. This was before the days of streaming and stuff, and I just missed it, and it was like, oh fucking hell, I wonder what happened.
Well, it got to series 2, finished on an absolute cliffhanger where they found that woman, I think, halfway through the series who had electricity. She's the only one who had electricity, and she had a mobile phone, and she kept it hidden because everyone had like horsebacks and was growing plants again, like it was something out of the 1600s. And just fucking cancelled it, didn't they? And that was a cracker, and that been reviewed really well. And I said to Sam at that point, I went, I am not watching this nonsense. Probably Game of Thrones, actually, sorry, is the most recent one that's run. And that stopped mainly because they've stopped, not because it got cancelled, because of obviously the success. But there's very few, David, these series that last more than 2 or 3 series. And I'm out then because they never finish correctly.
Yeah. You know the one that did it for me, Chris? And I'm sure, I think we've discussed this before. It was a series called Invasion. And it was like a small town kind of thing, and you've got this this sheriff, and you're not quite sure. It's like a bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing. Like, so everyone's walking around like they're human, but they're not quite right, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And then at the end of season 1, it's all getting ready, so it's all looking like, there's going to be some kind of invasion from within from these aliens. And then that was it. Fucking series was cancelled. I was so invested in it. I was just like, all right, fuck this. I am not getting involved. I'm not getting fucking engaged in anything ever again in a series like this where it's just going to get cancelled because actually you've cancelled it before people have even fucking got warmed up to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because I probably would have watched Swamp Thing, Dave, if I knew there was a second series, but I can't be asked getting invested in it, even if it is good, because I'm like, well, there's no point. There's no point at all. You may as well just made a film about it and cut it all down or something. Because do you remember that one with Hank out of Breaking Bad, who's, Fingy's brother-in-law, and it was that place where he was the sheriff and he was a bit of a bastard in it, and it had like it was like a wall thing, like a force field. So you had people living on the outside of it and people living on the inside. A bit like a Lost one. It's from about 5 or 6 years ago, Dave.
Oh, no.
Sam was well into it. It was basically this little town woke up one morning and they couldn't get out of the town. So you drive a vehicle and all of a sudden they drive into an invisible wall. And it was like, it's called the Dome. The Dome, it was called. And there was a dome appeared overnight in this like this area of about 50 square or maybe 20 square miles or whatever it is, and you couldn't get out of it, and they couldn't get in. And it was like it just ended up being a bit like that, like a survival type thing. And Hank was like the main bad guy in it. Breaking Bad, he was I think he got it off the back of Breaking Bad. He was a right bastard in it, but it was just they just cancelled it 2 series in, and it was like, see ya. We're gone. And I said to Sam, I said,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not. And that was another one. I didn't watch it properly. She had it on and I'd fall asleep. And I say, you just watch the rest of it. I'm not bothered. And I caught some of the pivotal bits of it. And I kept saying to her, you know, they're going to cancel this, don't you? She's like, shut up, you. You're always ruining it, you. I went, they're going to cancel it. I'm not watching it. And then about 2-3 weeks after the season finished, there was a list of programs, Dave. There must have been about 4 or 5 that Sam was watching. And it wasn't me being a dick or being a smart ass. And I said, I'm not being horrible, but that's why I like watching reality TVs. Because I don't need to get invested in it. I just don't have to. I don't have to worry about what's going on because it's nonsense. But I don't have to think. I can't wait to watch this, and then they cancel it. I just think the American way of producing shows for me is stupid. Because at least in the UK, you'll get 3 or 4 series. It's very rare that you'll get something that goes for 1 series, or they'll do a drama for maybe 3 episodes. But you know, there's a conclusion to it. The American stuff's brilliant at laying the ground rules. But then when it comes to actually finishing it, they'll go, right, we'll leave you on a cliffhanger and never make anything ever again. And you're like, well, that is just nonsense.
And they know what they're doing as well. So they make it a really juicy cliffhanger. So they're like, look, producers, look, everyone's going to want to know. Everyone's going to be chomping at the bit to find out what's going to happen. And then they're like, nah, we'd sooner spend all this money on, setting up a new series that people might actually watch. I was just looking it up. I don't know if you know the guys. He was in Dark Knight. He was the bank manager. So there's a guy called William Fichtner.
Oh, I know who he is, Dave. He's Mahone out of Prison Break. Loved him. He's great.
Oh, was he in Prison Break as well? Was he?
Yeah,
but I was just looking. It was 22 episodes. Right, that's season 1 of Invasion. I had watched from episode 1. I was on it and hooked. 22 episodes, 22 hours, Chris. I invested almost a full day if I binged it back to back, and then they just fucking cancelled it and left me. You bunch of bastards. So and unfortunately, Chris, maybe I tell you what, if we get to episode 10 and it's on a fucking cliffhanger, maybe I'll look back at this particular series, Helstrom, less fondly, because we know what's not going to happen. But
yeah, we'll see. Anyway, Dave, we've totally tangented off. Maybe that's the problem with the series. We're talking, we enjoyed it, but it's not been very memorable. This one, has it? We've talked about the industry, and that's been quite a good one. But shall we get into our review?
Yeah, let's go.
So, Dave, I'll go first again this week. Didn't mind it at all. I think the pieces are there for quite an interesting show. It's not necessarily something that I would seek out, but obviously we're going to review it for the purpose of a Comics in Motion. And I was surprised. I enjoyed it. I think the characters are quite interesting off the first 2 episodes. And we get the big bad at the end of the second episode, which looks like he is Satan, really, and an absolute monster because everybody's petrified of him. The end of the first episode he comes in, Dave. So we're not seeing him in a second. But he is looks like he's going to be the main focus. And it looks like they're setting up a good bad guy. Obviously, somewhere along the lines, it goes wrong, off what most people are saying. But I'm going to persist with this and just see if we're actually correct. And just for the purposes of the podcast and for mine and your sort of sanity. Maybe when I get to episode 5, I might message you, go, Dave, I'm not watching this shit anymore. It's not for me, but I am going to try and get through it and just to see if it is as bad as what everybody's saying. So I'm tentatively putting it in Hall of Justice, Dave. And I'm saying that tentatively because I don't know how it's going to go. It's not amazing, but it's definitely watchable. Maybe even top end of Hell's Kitchen. But I'll put it in Hall of Justice just for now because I think it's quite interesting. So what about yourself?
Yeah, I think we're probably around the same on this one. And so what I'm going to say is, this is given from the perspective of a couple of people who'd grown up with X-Files and loved it at the time. We spent years, like say 11 seasons. So, that was a big time of growing up, wasn't it? And you've got that kind of weekly format, and you don't know what the overarching story is, but you're quite happy. You've got the patience to actually just pick up some of these breadcrumbs and try and piece together what's the bigger picture to all of this. So yeah, I mean, I'd say it's tentative anyway. So if I'm to score these first couple of episodes, that's all I can do. That's no reflection on the whole series yet because we haven't watched it. But just for these 2 episodes, I'm going to stick it in Hall of Justice as well. This is well worth a watch, and especially if you were into X-Files back in the day. It's not the best thing you've ever seen. It's not up there with like the Daredevils or Mandalorian or anything like that, but it's just a watchable sort of mysterious kind of series about essentially around a character that's on that periphery of kind of Marvel's horror comics. And I will say they've done a good job in casting there. So Victoria Helstrom, the mother, is actually played by Elizabeth Marvel. So if anyone was ever, named correctly to be cast in a Marvel property, it's her, isn't it? So, yeah, no, joking aside, I think this is well worth a watch and well worth your time. Obviously, like you say, we've watched it. It's on Hulu. But hopefully, they'll bring it across on Netflix or something something like that in the UK and further afield.
No, and that's interesting now. So, because obviously, I'm hoping that Tony watches this, Dave, or has watched it. I want to hear his sort of breakdown of it as well, because that'll be quite good.
Yeah. No, I don't know if he's, he does a lot of reading and stuff, doesn't he? Intellectual stuff, Tony. So I don't know if he'll have watched it. So we'll have to give him a prod and just maybe let him know about this one, because that's the other thing. I don't think this has been marketed particularly. It's not been thrust out there, so a lot of people might just not know it's there.
Yeah, true. Exactly. I didn't know it was there, Dave, until you put me onto it. So, yeah, it's quite interesting at the end of the day. It's quite interesting response from people. And I think that's better when it is a bad one, reviewed badly, but we actually enjoy it because it shows, doesn't it, really? I'm useless at stuff like this. Basically, anything that I like, I can miss it, but I'll overlook things that are so wrong or whatever. But then when I watch some of that fucking hate, I'll go for a throat with it, won't, and absolutely nail it to the cross. So this wasn't one of them. I didn't go into it with any preconceptions of it. I just watched it for what it is. It was afterwards that I'd seen the sort of negative response to it.
Yeah. So Chris, we've been deliberating about what are we going to do next week. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to Christmas, aren't we? We did Batman Returns last year. What else did we do? We did a few different Christmassy type properties, and we were umming around this. But I think, you know what, we're going to have to go through with it, I think. What are we going to review next week?
Don't, Dave, the vocals hadn't gone off. That was just me sighing. We are going to review, Dave, We Wish a Turtle Christmas.
Now, were you aware of this one, Chris?
Dave, I loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid. Michelangelo was and always will be my favourites with the nunchucks. Being a martial arts fan, I loved him. Loved the pizza thing. I loved the TV show with the great James Avery as Shredder, who's Uncle Phil. I'm watching through Fresh Prince again, Dave, for about the 15th time in the last 10 years. I love Fresh Prince, but Uncle Phil, I love so much. So, yeah, I always remember him as Shredder. Bebop and Rocksteady. I had Turtles in Time game. We used to go to the arcades in Manchester. I used to go to school every morning. There was an arcade shop in Altrincham. In the bus station, we had Street Fighter 2 and Turtles. And I played them, Dave. I had a dodgy copy of the original Turtles film. The second one had Vanilla Ice in it and Casey Jones. I was all in on the Turtles. I loved them, Dave, so much so that I think I watched them up to being about 15, 16, but never used to admit it to my mates. They were like, oh, we don't watch cartoons anymore, don't play football anymore. We're into girls, us, and we go drinking on the park. And I'm like, no, I still play football every day. I still watch cartoons, and I still love stuff like that. So I was all in on the Turtles. I loved them. This, Dave, I've never seen. And I'll be honest with you, Dave, we're teetering on the edge of our friendship here because we have genuinely done each other on the VHS Strikes Back recently with some awful, even John Hammond, one of our listeners, has done us with well, he didn't really do me, but he did you with a film, an absolutely awful film for your height only. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not listened to it, it's a James Bond rip-off. It's a 2'9" vertically challenged gentleman who plays basically 00, and it's just James Bond with the music and everything. It is horrendous. It's on YouTube. So we try, when we have a pick, 9 times out of 10, we will go out of the way to stitch each other up. I probably started all this, Dave, when it's supposed to be a project, passion projects on our best movies, and we've gone to martial arts movies to just absolutely nailing each other. This is up there. My God. And it is available on YouTube. And I've tried to seek out a trailer, Dave, but what I found is a song, Deck the Halls, sung by Leonardo. And if you follow our social media channels, Dave was posting everywhere the Steven Seagal Strut song, which was where Steven Seagal basically put a Jamaican accent on, which was bordering on racism anyway, and tries to sing.
Bordering?
Well, it is racist, but he's trying to sing like he's Jamaican. And I told a story on the VHS about them we did Under Siege, about where we did it in the band. You'd left the band at the time, weren't you, Dave? Or just before you joined the band, and it was truly awful. But basically, Leonardo does a Jamaican reggae song in this thing. Oh, my God. So, yeah, enjoy they're not even a trailer. Just enjoy this song because this is what you're getting next week, guys.
Hey, kids, what do you think? Do we need more lights? We need more lights! They're coming, they're coming! Hey, kids, how about helping me sing my favorite Christmas song?
Take the holes with pepperoni. Fa la 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 la. Mustard, eggplant, and bologna. Fa la 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 la. Santa Claus will bring his reindeer. Fa la 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 la. In the sewer, how will they get here? Fa la 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 la. A scoodle do 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 poop. Hey, scoodle do do do. Light the lights and sing Noello. Fa la 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 la. Trim the tree with Donatello. Fa la 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 la. Soon we'll hear some jingle belling. Fa la 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 la. Where's my present? I'm not telling. Fa la 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 la. Stoodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Christmas Eve and all is ready. Fa la 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 la. No bebop and no rock steady. Fa la 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 la. Let's all sing this part together. Fa la 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 la. Merry Christmas to the shredder. Fa la 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 la. Fa la 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 la.
Well, I have to say, Chris, I wasn't aware of this one. Like yourself, I was quite into the Turtles as well. Back in the day, remember, dancing to the tunes and stuff down the school disco as well. Hadn't heard of this one until I was looking for the worst Christmas movies ever. And then discovered this little gem. And I thought, you know what? We have to cover this. And this is at the expense. I have not seen for a long time the Star Wars Christmas special. And I thought, well, a lot of people have probably watched that in recent years. We'll save that one for another year, I think, because that's quite legendary in terms of how bad it is as well. But I'm interested to watch this one next week. Now, Chris, how can everyone get in contact with us?
As always, guys, on our social media channels, at Comics in Motion P on Twitter. If you want to email us, the Comics in Motion podcast at gmail.com. And as Dave said earlier, we have got Mike's great show, Star Wars Comics in Canon. We're doing a weekly update where we would go through every single episode of The Mandalorian. Get over there if you are up to date with it. We just go through, and like we do on here, we spoil the hell out of it. It's been good fun. It's me, Dave, Scott, and Mike all together. We sort of hijack Mike's show, but Mike always comes in with some great knowledge and talks about different things around the characters and where they're from, because he's such encyclopedia of Star Wars knowledge. And also, we've got all the other great shows on our feed, on the Comics Emotion feed. So any podcast catching app that you're on, whether you're on Google, iPhones, whatever, there's all sorts of shows. Literally every day we have a show now. So it's really, really good. And we appreciate your support if you can get over there, guys.
Awesome stuff, Chris. Now, what I will say is it's been a good review, this one, because I wasn't sure what you'd make of it. I know I quite enjoyed it, and it seems like it's for the first time in a few weeks, we've been on the same page. Mind you, I say that, I'm thinking more probably with the VHS, because we were quite far apart last week, weren't we? With the old For Your Height Only.
Yeah.
Funny we were talking about old short Superman as well, wasn't it? So. But what I'll say is, Chris, it's been great to speak to you. And what are you going to finish us off with this week?
Well, it's nothing about Helstrom, because I couldn't really say to you there's anything that stands out for me, Dave. But all I will say is cowabunga, dude.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher. Same Xavier. Go fuck yourself.
What in the...
Tell me something, my friend. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne.
Would you care to step outside?
Come to me, son of Jor-El! Kneel before Zod!
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Batman.
And he ain't good.